March 3rd, 2019, Dandenong, Melbourne. Late at night, a young man finishes a session playing video games with his mates. He gets in his car and drives home. He never makes it. A silver Peugeot crashes into a pole. He is shot dead inside his own vehicle. He had nothing to do with the Comancheros, nothing to do with gang debt, nothing to do with any of it. He was simply in the wrong car, in the wrong suburb, at the wrong time. The hit was meant for someone else, and the man police allege ordered it is Mick Murray, acting national president of the Comanchero Motorcycle Club. The man who had spent his entire adult life refusing to answer a single question put to him by any law enforcement authority anywhere in Australia. The man who sat before Victoria's Crime Commission and said, "On the record, I'm not answering anything, I'm not lagging anyone. If you're gonna charge me, give me my charges." The man who went to jail for 8 months rather than say one word. This is not a story about whether Mick Murray is guilty. That is for the courts to decide. This is a story about what happens when silence becomes power, and an innocent young man ends up dead because of what that power set in motion. Hit subscribe now, because this one goes to places most people aren't ready to sit with. Michael Mick Murray was born in 1978. He joined the Comanchero Motorcycle Club as a young man and rose to become president of the Melbourne chapter, and eventually acting national president after Mark Buddle fled Australia for Dubai in 2016. Australian journalist Padraig Murphy described Murray as a feared hardman. He owned the Nitro Gym in Hallam and a tattoo parlour, legitimate businesses that sat alongside everything else. In March 2014, police raided his home and found guns, drugs, and $89,000 in cash. In 2017, he was summoned before the Office of the Chief Examiner of Victoria to answer questions about alleged involvement in organised crime. What followed became one of the most quoted moments in Australian organised crime history. Murray walked in, sat down and said, "Mate, I'm not gonna waste anyone's time. I'm not answering any questions today. I'm not lagging anyone, so you're wasting your time and mine. If you're gonna charge me, give me my charges this morning and that's it. I'm not answering anything. Mate, this place is the worst kept secret in Melbourne. Everyone knows who's been to the Crimes Commission. Everyone knows who talks about these things. This is not a secret." He was jailed 8 months for contempt of court. Chief Justice Peter Riordan said his refusal was deliberate and flagrant. Murray served the time, said nothing further, walked out. Not one additional piece of intelligence was extracted from him. Here is where this story gets genuinely complicated, and where it stops being simply about crime and starts being about something that cuts much deeper. Murray's refusal to cooperate is not unusual in organised crime. What is unusual is how completely and consistently he has maintained it. Across decades, across multiple investigations, across every attempt by law enforcement to crack him open. In March 2018, he went to jail rather than speak. In every investigation before and after, the same wall. And within the world Murray inhabits, this silence is not seen as criminal arrogance. It is seen as the highest expression of loyalty, the code of omerta, the principle that you carry your own weight and you do not make anyone else carry it for you. So here is the question this raises, and it is a question without a clean answer. Is Mick Murray's silence an act of loyalty that deserves a twisted kind of respect? Or is it a calculated strategy that shields an entire criminal network from accountability and leaves innocent people paying the price? The young man who died in Dandenong in 2019 had no part in that code. He never agreed to it. He never benefited from it. He just ended up on the wrong end of what it produces. The silence that protects one world destroys another. Look at the full timeline of what Murray has faced from law enforcement. 2010, charged with a fray after a brawl in Bondi. 2014, charged with assault after a road rage incident. 2014, home raided, guns, drugs, and $89,000 seized. 2017, summoned to Victoria's Crime Commission, refuses to answer anything. 2018, jailed 8 months for contempt. 2019, police warn him a contract has been placed on his life. 2021, charged with tax evasion alongside 3 others. 2022, tax evasion charges thrown out. Magistrate rules Crown failed to present sufficient evidence. 2022, arrested and charged with first-degree murder over the 2019 Dandenong shooting. 2025, charged again, this time in connection with a second murder, the mistaken identity killing of an innocent young man who had just been playing video games with his friends. That is more than 15 years of continuous law enforcement attention, charges laid, charges dropped, new charges filed. And here is the second controversial question this raises. Is this what justice looks like when it is working? A system methodically building cases against a dangerous man? Or is this what systemic harassment looks like? A man being pursued so relentlessly that the line between accountability and persecution becomes genuinely difficult to locate. The tax charges were thrown out. The magistrate found the Crown's evidence was insufficient. That matters, and it sits alongside everything else in this record without an easy resolution. Most people will have a strong instinct about which side of that line this falls on. But the instinct and the evidence do not always point the same direction. On 28 April 2022, Murray was arrested at his home in Leicesterfield South at 5 a.m. by Homicide Squad detectives. He was charged with first-degree murder in connection with the death of Mitat Rasimi in Dandenong on 3 March 2019. Rasimi was shot dead inside his car. He was said to be in debt to the Comancheros. 2 other men had already been charged with the murder, a 27-year-old in November 2019 and a 29-year-old in February 2020. Murray became the third person charged. Then, in May 2025, a second charge. Herald Sun revealed Murray as one of 2 men charged over a separate killing. A mistaken identity murder, an innocent young Melbourne man shot dead after playing video games with his mates. Because someone got the wrong target, Murray's Nitro Gym was raided at the time of his 2022 arrest. A computer was among the items seized. After Murray's arrest, Sydney chapter president Alan Meehan moved into the national president role. A criminologist from Queensland University of Technology noted, "It's going to be a lot easier to run from Melbourne than from Sydney because he doesn't have to worry about anti-association laws." Murray faces 2 murder charges. Both are before the courts. He has not been convicted of either. Under New Zealand and Australian law, he is presumed innocent until proven otherwise. That presumption matters, and it sits alongside everything else in this story. This is the question that law enforcement agencies across Australia and New Zealand have been quietly wrestling with for years. And Murray's case puts it in sharp relief. When Murray was arrested in April 2022, Alan Meehan stepped into the national president role. The organisation continued. When Pasilika Naufahu, president of the New Zealand Comancheros, was sentenced to 10 years in 2021, the New Zealand chapter continued. When nearly the entire NZ Comanchero leadership was charged with 137 offences in 2024, the organisation continued. Operation Texas in 2026 found the Waikato chapter still active. The pattern is consistent across every major organised crime takedown in both countries. You arrest the leader, a new leader emerges. The structure beneath absorbs the disruption and keeps running. Mark Laux of Queensland University of Technology said it directly after Murray's arrest. "It's going to be a lot easier to run from Melbourne than from Sydney because he doesn't have to worry about anti-association laws." The implication was clear. The organisation had already adapted before Murray had even appeared in court. So here is the third and most uncomfortable question this case raises. The investigation that led to Murray's 2022 arrest took years. The legal proceedings will take more years. The resources committed, police time, forensic investigation, court time, legal aid, run into the tens of millions of dollars across the full timeline. Does it work? Or are we playing an endless game of whack-a-mole, where every head we push down is replaced by another one before our hand has even left the surface? Murray is Australian. His story is Melbourne's story. But the organisation he led directly shaped what New Zealand is now dealing with. By 2018, the Comancheros had expanded to New Zealand. The migration of outlaw bikers from Australia into New Zealand had been driven by the Australian government's policy of deporting convicted non-citizen felons under Section 501 of the Migration Act 1958. The 501 deportees brought with them the Comanchero structure, the Comanchero networks, and the Comanchero connections to international drug supply, including alleged links to Mexican cartels. Murray was acting national president during the period when the New Zealand chapter was being established and was building its methamphetamine supply chains into Auckland. The commission scheme, the military training, the 137 charges, the Operation Texas arrests in 2026, all of it traces back, at least in part, to the period when Murray was running the organization that exported itself to Aotearoa. The man who never spoke a word to any investigator in Australia helped build the machine that is still running in New Zealand today. There are 3 questions at the center of Mick Murray's story, and none of them have clean answers. The first is the silence of a man who refuses to cooperate with law enforcement, a form of loyalty that carries its own integrity. Or is it a weapon that protects criminal networks and leaves innocent people exposed? The second, when law enforcement pursues a single individual across 15+ years through charges that are sometimes dropped and sometimes stick, where is the line between relentless justice and systemic targeting? The third, if arresting the leader of an organized crime group consistently fails to dismantle the group, what are we actually achieving, and is there a better use of the same resources? These are not comfortable questions. They do not resolve neatly into the system works or the system is broken. They sit in the space between, which is exactly where the most important public conversations need to happen. An innocent young man was playing video games with his mates on the night of March 3, 2019. He drove home. He never got there. Whatever you think about Mick Murray, whatever you think about the code of silence, about the investigations that followed, about whether arresting gang leaders changes anything, that young man's story sits at the center of all of it. He had no part in any of it. He just ended up there. For our community here in Aotearoa, the connection is direct. The organization Murray helped lead exported itself to New Zealand and built a meth supply chain that is still being dismantled in 2026. The 3 questions his case raises are not abstract legal questions. They are questions about how we respond to organized crime and whether the responses we have chosen are actually working. Are we winning this fight, or are we just getting better at documenting how we are losing it? And what do you reckon? When a gang survives the arrest of every single one of its leaders, what does that tell us about where the real power actually sits?